Previously, on the previous video, I tell longtime DOA fans that the Jiggle will return, and there's nothing to worry about for Dead or Alive 6, and then it looks great. We now join our regularly scheduled program, already in progress. Now, for those of you who are not already fans, I hope I haven't turned you off with all this talk about, Jiggle physics and fan service and things like that, because that's most likely, for some of you, the whole reason you've never really taken Dead or Alive seriously. I know it's just a fact. I mean, to be honest, one of the whole reasons I never played, or I have now, but in the past, when on PlayStation 1 and arcades, when the first Dead or Alive came out, one of the reasons I never really bothered to check it out was, I'd heard about the exaggerated, breast physics, which sounded cool and funny, but I still didn't really look into it because I got the impression at the time that it was like an all-female fighting game. The marketing really lent itself and really played on the whole female thing, and it didn't even occur to me back then that there were any male characters in the first Dead or Alive. There were, but at the time I didn't realize it, so I was like, maybe one of these days, but I got other games to play. So I actually didn't become a true fan of Dead or Alive until Dead or Alive 2, the first version on the Dreamcast, on the Sega Dreamcast. And the Sega Dreamcast was the singularity for when console games became more powerful than the arcade cabinets, because that was the first console we had. Soul Calibur, the technically second game in that series. The first game was Soul Blade on PlayStation and Sega Saturn. I don't remember if it was on Sega Saturn. I think it was, but it was on PlayStation for sure. My brother and I loved the hell out of Soul Blade. It was called Soul Edge in the arcades, and if you're Soul Calibur fans, I'm sure you know why it was called Soul Edge. But the second game was called Soul Calibur, and when we got our Dreamcast, we were looking for games to play. We rented Soul Calibur. It looked fucking amazing. We'd never seen a game that looked that good. And so we were down, my brother and I were just down to find whatever fighting games were out there, because, now was the time to find the best looking, fighting game that you were ever going to find. And so we stumbled upon Dead or Alive. I was always willing to give it a chance because, it was made by Tecmo, and Tecmo was a really good company, a Japanese company like Capcom, like Konami, Namco. And so, we tried Dead or Alive, and we immediately, it was a lot of fun to play. It really kicked ass, and it was fast paced and just faster than other fighting games like Soul Calibur, like Tekken. And also really liked the emphasis on counterattacks that hadn't really been in other games before. But what made me a fan? It wasn't the hot chicks, it wasn't the bouncing boobs. It was this guy right here wearing this costume, Ryu Hayabusa. At the time, his default costume looks, in the original Dead or Alive 2, looks nothing like this, or even his default costume now. The black, modern Ninja Gaiden outfit. He was showing his face. He was wearing kind of ninja garb, but his face was visible. His hair was out. His hair was long and stuff. And his name was Hayabusa. At the time, I thought that it was just a nod to the Ninja Gaiden series that I grew up playing and loving, back in the old NES days. His name was Hayabusa. And then when we started unlocking costumes, I stumbled upon this costume, the one you're seeing now, which looks remarkably like, Ryu Hayabusa from the old NES Ninja Gaiden games. And I was like, hold on a minute. He's not Ryu Hayabusa, is he? And so when you go to because, as you can see here, I mean, his name underneath the life bar is just Hayabusa, and I imagine they didn't want to name him Ryu, because, there's already a very famous Ryu in fighting games out there, so they just went with Hayabusa. But in Dead or Alive 2, when you looked at the character select screen, it gives, you know, them their stats, their fighting style, you know, their full name and everything. And his full name was Ryu Hayabusa, and I was like, holy fucking shit. And I love Ninja Gaiden so much that I was like, well, I'm here for the long haul. I'm going to master Ryu Hayabusa's moves. I'm going to main with him so hardcore and just whoop all kinds of ass. And I did. And I was a fan of Dead or Alive ever since. And, you know, for those of you, a lot of it has a reputation, somewhat fairly but somewhat unfairly, as being what people call a titty fighter, they say. And let me tell you, the tits are a bonus. Okay, the tits are a bonus, because this is, like I said, it's my favorite 3D fighting game series of all time, and it frankly, if it weren't what it is, if it was another fighting game with like maybe like mostly male characters, or you know, just a regular mix, but it didn't have, you know, the bouncing boobs, it would still kick ass. And I feel like a lot more people would take it more seriously, sadly, because I know it's turned off. It's been sort of a novelty for a lot of people for not getting into it. They just don't take it as seriously, but it deserves to. I fully understand Yohei Shimbori's want and desire to have people take Dead or Alive more seriously. It deserves it. I mean, it really does. Especially, you know, you Virtual Fighter fans. Dead or Alive 1 was built on the Model 2 hardware of Virtual Fighter 2, I believe. And Dead or Alive simply would not exist without Virtual Fighter. Previous, you know, Dead or Alive 5 producer, you know, Yosuke Hayashi mentioned that. He's like, we are all too aware of our existence being owed to Virtual Fighter, and that's why, if you're a Virtual Fighter fan, Dead or Alive 5 does indeed feature some Virtual Fighter characters. You know, it's got Jackie, Sarah, it's got Pai, and it's got Akira. And like, and they're also fucking hard in this game. Like, every time, like if I'm playing on hard or even on fucking normal, when you get to like the later stages, like eight stages in the arcade mode, when you get to like the later stages, 6, 7, 8, and they throw a fucking Virtual Fighter character in there, I'm just, every time I'm like, god damn it, I'm gonna get my ass kicked, because they're tough. They're pulled like directly out of the last Virtual Fighter game, Virtual Fighter 5. I mean, sound bites and everything. They sound terrible, but that's on purpose. And all the sound effects from Virtual Fighter 5 are there as well. But like I said, they're there. So Dead or Alive and Virtual Fighter in that way are like really direct cousins, or brothers or sisters. I mean, however you want to look at it. It uses basically the same kind of engine. There's a button for punching, there's a button for kicks, and there's a button for blocking and throws. Well, technically, you throw, you press like punch and the block button. But nowadays, you know, the throw button is mapped to its own button. It has been ever since Dead or Alive 2. However, Dead or Alive has, you know, punches, kicks, throws, and what are called holds. And if you hold the button down, yeah, it's a block. But I mentioned before, it's a counter attacks. And what makes the counterattacks of Dead or Alive unique is that they can do as much damage, if not more damage, than actually going on the offensive. I mean, you can literally win a match by countering your opponent, by only countering your opponent. Now, if that sounds cheap, it's a fighting game. You still have to correctly, accurately predict your opponent's attack, because it's not, you know, it's not Batman Arkham City or Arkham Knight. You don't just press one button and you counter. No, you have to guess whether or not an attack is coming, you know, high to your face, to your body, or low to your legs. You have to predict where your opponent's going to attack. From Dead or Alive 3, and before that, it was only a 3-way hold thing. You just diagonally back and directly back and then diagonally down, and the hold button, and you would counter their attack. Starting with Dead or Alive 4, they mixed it up. Also, for the purpose of this video, I'm going to refer to the buttons on the controller with fighting game notation. That's just so I don't have to keep saying square or X if you're on Xbox. Just so if you don't know what fighting game notation is, it's pretty simple. The 4 face buttons on your controller for. Oh yeah, also for the purpose of this video, I'm going to refer to the X button on the PlayStation controller as the cross button, just so you know what the fuck I'm talking about. Anyway, fighting game notation. Left to right, square and X is button 1, triangle and Y is button 2, A and cross are button 3, and circle and B are button 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, so it's faster. You get the counterattacks, you have to guess, but starting with Dead or Alive 4 and onward, they sort of made that harder. Instead of back and 1 being, countering all mid-range attacks, back and 1 are for countering mid-range punches, and then forward and 1 are for countering mid-range kicks. So that kind of mucked it up a little bit. That was one decision I didn't really like, because if you're fighting so damn predictably that you needed them to nerf the countering, then that should be on you. Plus, nowadays, starting with Dead or Alive 5, the timing window is a little trickier. You have to be a little bit more precise. So I feel like that should have fixed that problem. But I am pleased to see in Dead or Alive 6 they do give you the option to go back to 3-way holds or 4-way holds. You get to pick. So I'll probably play with that, but I do know that if I really want a challenge, I'm gonna have to go 4-way holds because everybody's gotta do that. So holds are a core mechanic of the Dead or Alive engine. And so are throws. You may hear this term thrown around, among Dead or Alive players, but it's called the triangle system. It is basically kind of like a rock, paper, scissors style system. Strikes will beat throws, holds will beat strikes, and throws will beat holds. And it's this fundamental system that allows you, if you know what you're doing, there are offensive holds, and since holds beat strikes, you can literally basically throw your enemy when they're trying to attack you, and it'll throw them off guard, and they'll be like, well, what the fuck, I was trying to kick him and he suddenly throws me, what the hell, how does that work? Because you used an offensive hold. Understanding the system is great. You can also perform a counter hold while you're basically getting staggered and beat to shit. Most games won't let you do that, but you have to time it right. Starting with Dead or Alive, they really did. They really decreased the window, and it feels better. If you get your timing, if you get the cadence down of your opponent's attacks, you can really counter the shit at them, and also just like I said, understanding the system is crucial. And if that sounds too gimmicky, rock, paper, scissors, what is all of that's depending on that? No, it's still a fighting game. You still have to land a punch or a kick on your opponent. You still have to successfully throw them. You still have to guess and get the right timing of a counter hold. And more than that, you have to take into consideration your opponent. Like I said, when you're getting staggered, you could still hold, but a really advanced player might change up his timing or feint, because a lot of the characters have feints, and he'll fake you out. You'll try to counter hold, and once you attempt to counter hold, you're open, and he'll throw you or he'll attack you, and like there are so many ways to create openings. It's a lot like real martial arts in that way, and some characters are heavy grapplers. You know, Tina and her dad Bass. I mean, they're wrestlers, and Raymond, the Russian command sambo expert. I mean, like with some characters you're going to be throwing a lot. You know, with other characters you're going to be striking a lot, and some of them have multiple counter holds, extra counter holds that do extra damage, and there's so many things to consider, and they're all really fun to play. And what's great is the combo flow is just very like free flowing, just punching and kicking. I mean, it's not like Tekken or Soul Calibur or even like Mortal Kombat. I mean, where it's like dial a combo. Yeah, there's those combos like that, but you can literally, like when my brother and I played the first Dead or Alive 2, we didn't realize you could counter attack when we put it on versus mode and just fought each other. We were just having fun beating the shit out of each other. It wasn't until like we were playing like the arcade modes and we were noticing our computer opponent was counterattacking us that we were like, whoa, how do you do that? That we went into it and learned how to counter, and we were just like little by little realizing how much more complicated and just advanced this game was. And for that reason, it's hard to like have friends over and get them into the game, because like you will kick their ass because you know what you're doing, and they don't. It's if you can pick up Dead or Alive and play it with a friend who's never played it either, it'll be like my brother and I were. You'll have fun beating the shit out of each other. But if you take the time to learn the mechanics, learn how everything works. I mean, for example, you can also, even though you can counter hold while you're getting your ass beat, if they juggle you in the air, if they launch you into the air, you're completely defenseless. Not only are you completely defenseless, but like the weight of the character, the body size comes into effect. The more like lithe and agile characters can get launched into the air higher than, say, characters like Bass that are big and bulky. I mean, there's a whole science there behind the mechanics, behind the engine, that like you don't really begin to notice until you really delve deep. And once you see all that, I mean, it's like I said, man, this is my favorite 3D fighting game for a reason. Lots of reasons. And I've just mentioned most of them. I mean, this game has a lot more meat on its bones than anyone's given it credit for. Like I said, the tits are a bonus. I mean, this would be like if Hooters served like really fucking good food. I mean, yeah, in real life they don't, I know, but it would be like a place like Hooters with the waitresses walking around, this and that, skimpy outfits, and then being like Cheesecake Factory quality food. Okay, and for those of you who've never been to a Cheesecake Factory, they do serve more than cheesecake. I mean, I had the best filet mignon I'd ever fucking had at a Cheesecake Factory. Dead or Alive is like that. Don't let the hot chicks fool you. I mean, this is an advanced fighting game fans fighting game. I mean, it really is, and you should really try it and play it and learn everything there is to learn about this game, because it deserves it. Frankly, it deserves it. And I was so glad to hear that it was getting another entry, because in the beginning, Tobunobu Itagaki, the original head of Team Ninja and creator of Ninja Gaiden and Dead or Alive, he had a lot of like love for it. He also, when he came up with Dead or Alive, and especially starting with like Dead or Alive 2, he was inspired by other games as well. I mean, I already mentioned the influences that Virtua Fighter had, but the Mortal Kombat was also a big influence. He liked how some of the stages in Mortal Kombat were, interactive, like, knocking people off of the pit and things like that. And then he decided to take that and create a game with very interactive environments, and it's been that way since Dead or Alive 2. I mean, you can throw people off of roofs or knock them off of roofs and knock them off of stairs, and like they'll get hit by a bus, and like it's all there. Dead or Alive has been doing that kind of thing with its stages, you know, longer than anything else. I mean, it took it further than Mortal Kombat. I mean, in Mortal Kombat, you use the stage, the environment, you know, for fatalities, stage fatalities. But in Dead or Alive, it's a part of the game. I mean, like in the past, they kind of did it better. Dead or Alive 4 was really a great fucking game. There was like a Vegas stage where like you were fighting in the middle of the street, and you kind of had to watch out for like, you know, oncoming cars and not just get the shit knocked out of you. They're going that extra mile with Dead or Alive 6. I mean, they're fighting in fucking Jurassic Park, I guess, where there's like dinosaur eggs that'll like fucking, you know, if you crack the dinosaur egg, like the mama pterodactyl or whatever will come out and like pick you up and fucking drop you because you're a bitch for attacking her baby, I guess. There's a my favorite like stage so far that I've seen from Dead or Alive 6 is the one where you're like fighting in a back alley, and there's a crowd gathered to watch the fight, and you know, if you knock your opponent into the crowd, they'll like throw them back into the ring. The crowd will like, get the fuck back in there, and they'll push your opponent back into you. It's great. It's so fucking great. I mean, if you've been watching this video, like actually watching it, because I know my voice kind of lends itself to like, you could just turn on my video and just do something else while you're listening. I get that. I understand. And sometimes I don't try very hard with the editing because I know that. But on the off chance you actually have been watching this video and watching the fights, I mean, you've already seen it. You've already seen how interactive the stages can be. And Dead or Alive 5, you know, it had some really unique stages, but in the past, you gotta play all of them. You gotta play all of them, really. Tomonobu Itagaki, though, for as much of a visionary as he was, and as much as I owe him for creating Ninja Gaiden and Dead or Alive, Itagaki was kind of a dick. like I know, he was kind of a dick because once the original Xbox came out, because like I said, Dead or Alive 2 was on Sega Dreamcast, and then the PlayStation 2 burst onto the scene after the Sega Dreamcast. And what do you know, Dead or Alive 2 is now on PlayStation 2 as Dead or Alive Hardcore, Dead or Alive 2 Hardcore. And then once the Xbox burst on the scene, by the way, the Xbox was unexpected. I sort of directly blame Microsoft for killing the Dreamcast. And that's because no one expected, I mean, Nintendo maybe too, but everyone knew there was going to be a new Nintendo console, so not necessarily, and everybody knew there was going to be a PlayStation 2, but nobody saw Microsoft getting into the whole console war. Nobody saw it. And so when the Xbox came out, I mean, it had the most powerful hardware. Yeah, it would fuck up a lot. This was before the Red Ring of Death. It would still fucking hardware failure all day, but it did have the most powerful console hardware at the time, and Itagaki was like, well, I guess I don't need to make games on any other console because I'm going to go with the most powerful system, and fuck all of you who don't like it. Because at that point, Dead or Alive became an Xbox exclusive, and since he loved the Xbox so much, when he finally did reboot Ninja Gaiden, it was only on the Xbox. And yeah, I had an Xbox, of course I played it. It's just, like, he was such a fanboy about it. I don't know what the fuck. He also, you know, at the time there was, starting with like Dead or Alive 3, it featured music from Aerosmith, which was kind of weird. But you know what? It kind of fit. So after Dead or Alive 4, Itagaki left, and again, he was kind of a dick. For whatever reason, he felt like he hadn't been paid his dues for Dead or Alive 4, his royalties, his whatever Tecmo owed him. So he left, and when he left, again, to illustrate my point, he was like, well, I guess no more Ninja Gaiden, no more Dead or Alive. Because I was the sole reason those things existed. But luckily, Team Ninja didn't go anywhere. Luckily, Team Ninja picked up the mantle. And so I was really glad to see that. And the first game they made... before I get into this, Ninja Gaiden Sigma, which was the PlayStation 3 version of Ninja Gaiden, was only created by Itagaki, and this is like directly from him. This direct quote: to show PlayStation owners what they're missing out on. so even though, you know, when the PlayStation 3 came out, he was already his chips were still in for the Xbox 360, and he's like, you know what? I'll bet I'll convince a few PlayStation owners to get an Xbox if I show them how badass Ninja Gaiden was. Now, to be fair, Ninja Gaiden is badass. Ninja Gaiden is the best action game of all time. Yeah, I loved Devil May Cry, but no, sorry. Ninja Gaiden is where it is at. And yeah, so once he left, he was like, no more Ninja Gaiden, no more Dead or Alive, fuck all of you. And so, Team Ninja's next game after that, post Itagaki, was Ninja Gaiden Sigma 2, which was just kind of in following the tradition, and they made because Ninja Gaiden 2 at the time was an Xbox exclusive because Itagaki. And so Ninja Gaiden Sigma 2 was the PlayStation 3 version, and even though that was a great fucking game, and it had the really cool co-op mode that you could do with a friend online, and they threw in more weapons and stuff, and the graphics also looked better, strangely enough. There were a few weird things about it that kind of had me concerned, but at the time I didn't really think much of, and that was like the lack of blood. But at the same time, the blood was kind of replaced by like sort of, you know, mist coming out of the fiend's demons, like limbs and stuff. The violence and blood just wasn't as pronounced, and at the time I didn't really worry about it. But then when Team Ninja made Ninja Gaiden 3, oh man, they really fucked up. Because one of the things they were saying was like, you know, people were like, hey, where's all the decapitation and dismemberment and shit, and like all blood? They said like, well, you know, people just didn't want to see that anymore. And my first thought was like, I don't remember being asked. Who the fuck didn't want to see that anymore? I mean, we played. It just didn't make any sense. So understandably, before Dead or Alive 5 came around, when they were saying what they were going to do, I was worried. And you know, with Dead or Alive 6, I was worried again. Like, luckily they did fix it in Ninja Gaiden 3 with Ninja Gaiden 3 Razor's Edge, but yeah, Itagaki still kind of knew what he was doing, and the reason I bring him up is because a lot of people's exposure to Dead or Alive is from like Dead or Alive 4 and onward, and one of the things that they did after Dead or Alive 3 was re-release Dead or Alive 1 and 2 for the Xbox, and Dead or Alive 2 was basically a souped up, awesome looking version of Dead or Alive. You know, it was Dead or Alive 2 Ultimate is what it was called, and it was like, with the current graphics, it was Dead or Alive 2, and at that point Ninja Gaiden had come out, so they went ahead and put Ryu Hayabusa in his, you know, Ninja Gaiden 1 outfit. The graphics were way better, and I want to point that game out because one of the chief criticisms, and again, this is for people that, you know, haven't played them all, and they'll be like, well, the story sucks. First of all, I mean, is there any fighting game series other than, say, like Injustice, that story is like the strong suit? I don't think there is. However, Dead or Alive story does not suck. And that's just wrong. If you don't believe me, do yourself a favor, and after you're done watching this video, look up, because you're on YouTube, look up Dead or Alive Dream On. and I think it's IGN that has it, but it's Dead or Alive 2 Ultimate's intro, and this was still when they were using Aerosmith's music. But they, luckily for this intro, picked the best Aerosmith song ever, which is Dream On. And that is the introduction to Dead or Alive 2. It's a fully, like, pre-rendered cutscene, beautiful, and I'm not going to say anything else about it other than when you watch it, if that's not one of the best fucking introductions to a video game you've ever seen, I want you to come back and tell me that. Hell, if you want to come back and just, like, fucking gush about it because it was so fucking awesome, I'll understand. Dead or Alive has an amazing story, and one of the reasons Dead or Alive 5 story was kind of weak was because they actually really wrapped up a lot of the main stuff that had been happening in Dead or Alive 4. So I was just glad to get Dead or Alive 5. So I was kind of lenient on its story because, I mean, how do you follow up after Dead or Alive 4? I mean, if you happen to own a Nintendo 3DS, I highly recommend picking up Dead or Alive Dimensions, because it's basically like gives you the story of like all Dead or Alive games 1 through 4, and it puts all of the cutscenes from the arcade modes in context. It's great because like Dead or Alive's arcade mode kind of was its story mode in the past, and like you would pick your character, play through them, and then like you would see certain cutscenes between certain fights with other characters, and they would be talking and whatever. Dead or Alive Dimensions put all of those cutscenes into total context, giving you a complete view of the entire Dead or Alive story up until Dead or Alive 5, everything before Dead or Alive 5, and you'll love it. You'll love it as much as I do, I'm pretty sure. So yeah, definitely check that out. Also, if I've convinced you at all to at least give Dead or Alive a shot, I will say this. Right now, there is a free-to-play version. I don't know if it's on Xbox, I assume it is, but on PlayStation 4 at least, there is a free-to-play version of Dead or Alive 5 Ultimate. Yeah, you don't get all the characters and everything, but if you want to just try it out, it's free. If you want to try it out to see everything I've been talking about and see how much fun it is, go for it. It's free, and if you like it, you know, whatever, buy the full game if you want, or just wait until Dead or Alive 6. But I'm telling you, Dead or Alive deserves respect. It has not received that respect from everyone at large, and it is a damn shame. So hopefully I've talked some of you guys into it. And at the very least, I mean, it's just great. I mean, it really is. And this video has gone on way too long, but I hope I got my point across. So if you like the video, share, subscribe, all that stuff, and we'll see you next time.